Poland invented democracy. Yes, that's right. At least the democratic system we know today, which is based on a civic model that emphasized the subordination of the monarch to the people and which unified the people not around their similarities but despite their differences, as people of different ethnicities, religions, and backgrounds were all able to live together, unified by a set of values and a collective fight against oppression from neighboring tyrants. This is taken for granted to most people in the modern developed world, but back then it was a shining glimmer of hope in a world devoured by absolutism and fanaticism. Many people assume democracy originated in Athens, or that the modern democratic system involving parliaments with an emphasis on the autonomy and freedom of the individual was given to us by Britain, but Poland's medieval democracy, lost to the mists of time, eerily resembled everything we take for granted in the free world today. Extensive voting rights, individual autonomy, and the concept that the king serves the people and not the other way around. These modern values perfectly describe the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a country which held elections from 1573 to 1764, during a time when Europe was gripped by tyrannical rulers who consolidated their absolute authority, religious fanaticism, which led to the persecution of millions across the continent, and the constant brutal competition between militaristic, Machiavellian powers scheming to subvert each other and expand their ever-growing empires. This would infamously contribute to the downfall of Poland, echoing the fall of Athens as Philip of Macedon put a dramatic end to the Athenian experiment, showing that democracy is fragile and should be cherished when it manages to break through the barrier of society's natural decay towards tyranny. Yet Poland democracy much more closely resembled the system that governs our world today, with the most notable difference being the prioritization of a civic identity based on common pride in the shared system, which put individual freedom above all, rather than a fixation on ethnicity. In Athens, there was a myth that all citizens came from the soil and were bound by ethnicity and their Greek gods. In Poland, Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Germans, Jews, Tatars, and others all lived together, following Catholicism, Orthodoxy, Protestantism, the Unitary Church, a strange experiment of the time, Judaism, Islam, or paganism. Nonetheless, none of these were second-class citizens and all could become nobles, giving them a right to vote which united the nobility around a shared sense of freedom. And while the church would try to exercise influence, the szlachta remained more loyal to themselves and the secular state. Today, separation of church and state is a cornerstone of modern society, along with the idea of universal, non-discriminatory voting rights. In fact, the Athenian attitude towards eligibility for voting is completely foreign to us, while the Polish system is what echoes what we see today in Europe and much of the rest of the world. This is shown by the amount of times the Poles went against their ruler and how they set the terms for who would lead them. Instead of being spoken down to from a position of authority, they would often elect foreign kings and members of the nobility with no history of royalty, focusing only on who would best preserve the freedom of the nobility. As an example, the first three elected monarchs were French, Hungarian, and Finnish, while Athenians didn't consider foreign people able to even be citizens. Another way Poland obviously inspired our modern world is the Liberum Veto. One member of the Sejm could veto any law, the exact system in place in the EU today. The system was designed to make sure no one's rights were infringed and all members had to agree to any new change. This made reform difficult but ensured the freedoms set up by the system were protected and it never spiraled into a dictatorship like Greece or Rome. This same system ensures Brussels bureaucrats don't have too much power in dictating laws in all of Europe, as a single country can veto laws, something ironically used often by Poland, who clearly remember their roots. This system prevents tyranny of the majority, where, for example, a certain group which makes up 51% of the population use this majority to oppress the other 49 instead of attempting to reach a compromise. Moreover, the success of this is evidenced by the fact that Poland stayed extremely democratic until its fall, and yes, this did lead to a lack of reform, and which left Poland vulnerable and paralyzed, eventually leading to its demise. But democracy-wise, this is much closer in principle to the unassailable value of human rights. Modern democracies make a compromise between the more ruthless systems of the ancient world and the extreme freedom of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. but lean closer to the Commonwealth, giving it another win in the comparison. Finally, there is the argument that the British parliamentary system is what played the pivotal role, the meteoric rise of democracy in the modern world. Britain spread their parliamentary system to much of the world, but they were very late to the party compared to Poland. Their first election was in 1708, almost 150 years after Poland. Not to mention, most other countries' systems today more closely resemble Poland's. And so, if Poland pioneered the modern world, why is this chapter of history so often forgotten? Firstly, the partitioners erased Poland from the map for 123 years and silenced its people, attempting to create the illusion that Poland was an anarchic backwater in order to justify their brutal occupation. Immeasurable amounts of Polish history, art and culture were destroyed, stolen and erased from the annals of time. Athens' history, meanwhile, has been well preserved as the Romans consciously chose to preserve it due to their strong appreciation for their culture, with Eastern Roman monks safeguarding the scriptures before introducing them to the West, where they acted as a catalyst for the Renaissance. This foundational role in shaping modern Western thought created a bias in the minds of contemporary thinkers who would often put Greece on a pedestal, whether their politics, philosophy, or society, even if others clearly resembled the emerging Enlightenment ideals more closely. Maybe one day Poland will receive the credit it deserves. Dziękuję. Comment your thoughts in the comments, or Poland will continue to be disgraced.